All right, let's dive into something that's hiding in plain sight. A tiny little error in how we think that, believe it or not, shapes how we see pretty much everything.
I want you to think about this for a second. What if the very words you use every single day are creating a subtle illusion, an illusion that completely changes how you experience everything, from a river to your own self?
And here it is. This is the core idea. We take things that are flowing, moving processes, verbs, and we treat them like they're solid, static objects, like nouns. It sounds so simple, almost harmless, right? But once you see this, you are going to see it everywhere. See, the moment we slap a name on something, it's like we mentally hit the pause button. We freeze it in time, we give it a label, and by thinking we know what it is, we usually stop paying attention to what it's actually doing. A perfect example is a river. We point and we say river, right? But there isn't a single fixed object called river just sitting there. What's really happening is the process of rivering. It's water flowing, its banks eroding, its life constantly moving. The noun river is just a convenient handle we use for a continuous action.
This slide just nails the difference. On the left, you've got the noun, river. It's a snapshot, frozen in time. But on the right, you have the reality, rivering, a dynamic, unstoppable process. Now, the mistake isn't that we use the word river. The mistake is when we forget that the word isn't the real thing.
The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus was all over this idea thousands of years ago. When he said this, what he meant was that the next time you step in, guess what? Both you and the river have already changed. The sameness that we recognize isn't some fixed substance. It's just a recognizable pattern of change. The river's being is its doing.
Okay, so that's a river. But what does this have to do with us? Let's take this whole idea and turn it inward, because this verb versus noun thing gets really interesting when we apply it to ourselves.
Here's a really powerful way to picture this. Imagine that all of life, all of existence, is just one massive river. And you? Well, you're like a whirlpool in that river. You look like a distinct, separate thing, for sure, but you're not actually separate from the water at all.
This table breaks it down perfectly. Just like a whirlpool, you don't really have a hard edge. You're made of constantly changing thoughts, feelings, and sensations. Your identity isn't some fixed object, it's an ongoing activity, a process that's always exchanging with the world around you.
So here's the big linguistic shift. Instead of thinking about a static noun, the self, we can start to see it as a verb, selfing. It's not some little person inside you who has experiences. No, you are the experiencing itself.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds a little abstract, maybe a bit philosophical. But the proof that you are a process, well, it's happening inside your body at this very moment. This isn't poetry. This is pure biology. Just think about your breath, right now. We say take a breath, as if it's an object we can grab. But look at what's actually going on. The world, air that is not me, comes into you, literally becomes a part of you, and then you give it back to the world. So tell me, where does you end and the world begin? That boundary is constantly blurring. There's only the process of breathing. And what that means is that your body isn't some sealed-off fortress, not at all. It's a porous system that's in a continuous, dynamic conversation with everything around it. Your blood, your breath, it's all part of a much larger circulation. So this brings us to the big so what question, right? Why does reframing ourselves from nouns into verbs actually matter in our day-to-day lives? Well, it turns out the practical payoffs are actually pretty profound. Okay, 3 huge benefits. First, your ego softens up. I mean, if you're a process, not a statue, there's a whole lot less of a fixed thing to constantly defend. Second, you can find more peace with change. Things like aging and loss, they start to feel more like the river just rearranging its patterns, not an attack on you. And finally, language becomes a better tool. You realize the word self is just a pointer, a useful shortcut for the amazing process of selfing. All right, so as we start to wrap this up, let's bring it all home. Let's focus on this one core idea. It's really all about letting go of the noun and learning to embrace the verb. It's this simple shift in perspective. When we say river, we understand it's actually rivering. When we talk about our breath, we recognize that what's really happening is the constant, beautiful process of breathing. And so when we think of ourself, we can remember that it's not a thing we are, but something we are constantly actively doing. It's selfing. And that leaves us with one final thought to just sit with. What would it actually feel like if you let go of the heavy burden of being a fixed, permanent noun, and instead just allowed yourself to be a process, a flow, to simply be a verb.